over Kentucky. I forget, David, 15-4, 14-4. They just bashed them. And it was an incredible performance, especially by Cags again. He did it. And, of course, a new guy, Brenden Dudley. So we'll talk about that with David Bolton on a short version of the show today. And we'll take this quick time out to do the open to make it all official. Let's see if I can do this right. Stand by. There we go.
Old buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hello, welcome. It's not evening. It's not even a regular scheduled broadcast, but I'm very honored to have my friend David Bolton today for just a few minutes after this big win by the Gators today. If you didn't see it, I can't imagine you didn't, but a great performance by Caglione, not to mention their pitcher that no one had ever heard of, and Coppola or however you want to say his name. I think they pronounce it Coppola. Brenden Dudley, a guy we haven't heard much from. 2 home runs today in the run. He I think it's his first hit. Matter of fact, David Bolton from Miller and Moulton. Good to be with you, David. I know you watched it. I don't know. I didn't expect all of this, but what a day, huh?
Well, depth for the Gators at times has been questioned. The depth of the lineup, the bottom half of the lineup. Well, 5 through 9 guys today, but he had, I think, 8 hits and 10 RBIs. And yeah, a guy who had not won a game all year and who had an ERA when the day began in double digits. And he gives you 5 innings, and you only have to use 2 pitchers after him. And so basically, you have about as rested a back end of your bullpen as you could have, having to play 2 games in 12 hours.
Yes, he's got his pitching set up pretty good, all things considered, which you're going to have because you got tonight, and then you get to the championship series. You got to go again. Got to beat them twice if you beat them during the night. So it's been a terrific performance. This is one of the best coaching jobs Sully has ever done. And yet they were calling for his head about a month ago.
Well, that's absurd.
Yeah.
First off, let's be honest. Even if they had somehow, some way missed the NCAA tournament, it's still absurd. And obviously, Florida's loaded with talent. Sometimes guys don't perform. Sometimes there are injuries. Sometimes you have one of those years. And ironically, buddy, the Gators have managed to have 2 or 3 seasons all in one. They basically had one of those years, and now they're writing a completely different tune.
They are. So they've eliminated Kentucky. They'll play Texas A&M. They say 7-8. I'm not sure the time. Of course, it's always starts late. The Florida State-Tennessee game this afternoon is going to be delayed. We'll see what happens there. But Caglione now 3rd all-time on the SEC's career home run list. Eddie Furness, Brad Cressy, and Cags. 75 home runs. If you continued on this pace, Cags would have had 121 home runs if you played as many games as Furness did. But that's just a way. So, and Dudley was a shocker. He bashed the ball. Looked like he got out of the park and never got up there.
I mean, when your 8-hole hitter is 2 homers, 5 RBIs, I mean, that's when I will say once it got to 11-4, I'm guessing there were a few Gator fans that were like, hey, save a few hits for tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Save a few runs for tonight.
You got a little nervous about Coppola thereafter he pitched brilliantly. Then he gave up a couple of runs on the home run, but
he gave you. I mean, guy with a double-digit
yeah,
ERA, and he gives
yeah.
you 5 innings.
And I think did he only give did he only pitch like 10 innings all year or something? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, so
very impressive.
even with giving up 4 runs in 5 innings, his ERA is still barely under 9. And then you had 2 guys go 2 innings each. So, and those guys would be available to pitch tomorrow if there is a game tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, the Gators got out here relatively unscathed, and here they are. And if you think about it, when you lose your first game of the tournament, and here you are with a chance to to be in the finals still.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable. And, the way the NCAAs even began for them. So, this is awesome. We all know they have the talent, and they got the big enough arms and big enough bats that they can beat anybody. It's baseball, for goodness sake. I mean, Tennessee may be number 1 in the country. They needed a miracle rally and a call or 2 to go their way just to beat the Noles a few days ago. So, it's baseball. Anything can happen.
Let me just say this program is being brought to you by our sponsor, our fine sponsors. As a matter of fact, he was out in Omaha earlier today, Melvin Law, and Mr. Melton was in Omaha. He loved it, came back. He was so excited. I know he's probably on the golf course now, I think, with Todd Golden and a bunch of guys. It really is right now. And Dr. Pete, they're playing golf with us on the radio, and he is pumped and excited. And so, by the way, he has a great time, spends a lot of money sponsoring things in his program. By the way, he also practices law. Let me just be sure and say he has offices now in 4 places: a new one in Williston, one in Ocala, one in Gainesville, and Lake City. Meldon Law, they don't back down. Gators certainly didn't back down today. Some of our listeners are reacting. Chuck McKenzie says, well, for now, I'm a Vols fan. Okay. I don't know why. I wouldn't mind seeing Florida State and Florida play, but that's okay.
I was going to say, can you try to finagle it where you root for the Noles to win today, so the Vols have to use up some arms and some pitches tomorrow? But and besides, I mean, do you really want to play Tennessee for the Natty?
I guess it doesn't matter.
I understand it's the Noles. I get it, but I mean, come on.
I'm with you on that.
By the way, can we just for a second though? How blankety blank great would it be if the Gators and the Noles played a best of 3 for the Natty?
I'm in Tallahassee right now. Okay, I'm saying this. By the way, this beautiful hotel. I'll be here every time I come in. It's
Indigo, yeah.
Great hotel.
Buddy, I don't know. That's considered like an artsy hotel. I mean, you and artsy are usually not in the same sentence.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
But it's I've met the general manager. He's moved here from Boston. He loves the Celtics now, of course. And I said, look, I'm not in a Seminole here. He said, I'm not a Seminole. He says, I moved here from Boston. I said, just so you know, I'm doing a podcast in my room, and it's Gator Bait. I said, I'm cool with that. So we're good buds now. I said, I'm coming back here because they have everything I need, from the Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Beds are fantastic. The bathroom is sensational. This is going to be my home away from home, baby, right here. Indigo, all right? Smoky Gators, let's see, what else got? A couple comments. I can visualize. Let's see. Let me see the comments. Can you see those, David, those comments?
Well, I can. And I will say this. Early in the game tonight, having to play 2 games in the same day, I actually think the first time through favors the Gators. They've already played today. They're confident, the whole deal, and they're swinging the bats. They're ready to go. They're like, put any darn pitcher out there. We'll hit anybody. So first time through, first hour of the game tonight, I actually like the Gators to get off to a good start against A&M. I think, playing 2 games in one day, I mean, these are young guys. I mean, they've been playing 2-3 games a day during the summers and what have you forever. It's not a problem.
Yes. David Moulton, Miller Moulton, and we're going to be joined by Franz Beer. Before we do, we've got to talk about Willie Mays.
Yes.
I sent you that great picture today of Willie. What can you say? Everybody seems to have a Willie Mays story. What's yours, David?
I only encountered him one time. I was 25 years old. I had just been hired in Binghamton, New York, and Cooperstown's about 80 minutes away, but we were their local station. And we made a big deal of Hall of Fame weekend. We did a live 1-hour show Friday night, 7 to 8 of Hall of Fame weekend. We did a live 1-hour show, 7 to 8. And we would tape a bunch of stuff, Hall of Fame Day, Sunday, and put it all together. And so I lived in Cooperstown for 4 days every summer for 3 years. And my first Hall of Fame was 1991. And I encountered Willie Mays. And I had been warned that, first off, Willie doesn't always come.
Right.
Because at the time, if you remember, in the mid-'80s, Willie and Mickey Mantle were suspended by then Commissioner Bowie Kuhn for being hired by a casino in Atlantic City to be greeters, literally Walmart greeters at a casino. But look at how times have changed 40 years later. How absurd does that seem with all the sports gambling that we have? But the commissioner at the time did not want any association with casinos and gambling, and he suspended Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. And even though they were eventually reinstated, it left a sour taste in Willie's mouth. And I was told he didn't always come to the Hall of Fame weekend, but his teammate Gaylord Perry was being inducted. And so Willie showed up. And I approached him as a young, naive 25-year-old reporter, and I had been warned he's going to say no and he's going to bite your head off. And he was great.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I just said, I want to talk to you about your teammate, Gaylord Perry. And then, I asked him 2 questions about him and Cooperstown and, where the guys talk about whatever. He was great. Did 5 minutes with Willie Mays. And, buddy, I remember that. And if you've been to Hall of Fame Day, that Sunday, they usually go alphabetically for the Hall of Famers, but they will save a certain 2, 3, 4 for the very end that are the elite of the elite. And the last 3 men who were announced, who walked on the stage and took their bow before they sat down, were Willie Mays, Ted Williams, and Joe DiMaggio.
Wow.
And I just remember, and I still get goosebumps just thinking about that moment. And it was always obnoxious and ridiculous that DiMaggio always insisted on being introduced last and being introduced as the greatest living ball player. And I actually couldn't believe they did it in the Hall of Fame of all places.
Wow.
But they did, because otherwise Joe wouldn't have come.
Yes.
Which I learned later on. But so that was my one.
Sure, I've heard it too.
That was my one encounter with Willie Mays, and he was every bit the personality of the say hey kid that we all heard about. I mean, Bob Costas was emotional this morning on the Today Show, just reciting stories about Willie playing stickball in Harlem after Giants afternoon games. The kids would wait for him by his apartment. He would come home, change, and play stickball in the street with the kids, and then buy them all ice cream when the ice cream trucks came through. I mean, and then of course I had Peter Gammons on the show this morning, buddy, and he talked about how, a lot of the guys were lost a little bit when the Giants and Dodgers went to the West Coast, and particularly Willie, because, the Giants, they were in the 54 series when they were in New York and they won it. But, buddy, the only other 2 times that Willie played in the playoffs was the 62 World Series when they lost in 7 to the Yankees, and then 73, his final year with the Mets. Because remember, at the time, we didn't have an LCS till 69, so you had to win the pennant to make the playoffs. And the Giants, while being competitive, couldn't beat the Dodgers and the Cardinals for the most part during Willie's time out in San Francisco. So, and if you think about it, there was no internet. There was 1 game a week on television, and if half the country, when you woke up, the San Francisco Giants box score was not in your paper. Okay, there were no highlights to be seen anywhere.
That's what hurt him really a lot, is that people don't understand. When he went to the West Coast in those days, newspapers couldn't get the box scores in.
No.
We had no TV highlights.
No. I mean,
so we didn't know how great a player he was.
Right.
So we didn't see very much of him back east.
I mean, you obviously heard about him. Peter told the story, buddy, in which he said he was watching a World Series game with Hank Aaron. And Hank just turned to him and said, I was boring compared to Willie. I did the same thing all the time. He goes, obviously I was pretty good at it, but I was boring. He said, And this was the time when ESPN was still doing Baseball Tonight and what have you. And Hank just said to Peter that Willie would have been the lead on SportsCenter and certainly Baseball Tonight 5 times a week.
For sure. Well, my stories are not that exciting, but I'll tell you one that was. I was at the All-Star game in the Astrodome when it was brand new
Okay.
in 1967. Willie Mays stole home, and they won the game 1-0. And I remember seeing a young rookie pitcher strike out Mickey Mantle. His name was Tom Seaver. When the game was over, Hubert Mizell said to him, "Hey, he knew him from playing in Jacksonville." He said, "What was it like?" He said, "It was great." He said, "It was me, the kid, against the great." That was a great line. Me, the kid, against the great. So RIP to him. And if you didn't know how good Willie was, I will say this: I don't have a great memory of him with the Mets because I remember living in New York, and I remember going to the World Series out in I guess it was Oakland.
Yep.
Yeah, and he played center field, and he was just turned 40, and he literally stumbled and fell twice.
Well, and actually, he was like 43. Okay, he was older than that either because he made his debut in 51 when he was 20. So I think he was 42 or 43 when he stumbled in center field in Oakland. This is another thing to consider. Willie, like a lot of players in the 40s and 50s, lost time to the war. Willie, when he was 21 and 22, I believe that's how old he was, what would have been his second and third year in the majors, he played only 36 games because he was drafted in the Army for the Korean conflict. Now, I don't think he ever saw battle.
No, he didn't.
But he was gone.
Like Ted Williams, who did fly.
Exactly. And who missed 5 years.
Yeah, for World War II.
But Willie missed 2 years. And if you look and you average out the numbers, there's a good chance Willie would have retired if he didn't serve in the Army those 2 years. Willie would have had roughly the same number of home runs as Babe Ruth. Give or take a handful less or a handful more. Wow. Instead of just under 3,300 hits, he probably has 35 or 3,600 hits. He was just shy of 2,000 RBIs. He probably would have had close to 2,200. For those that are into modern stats, nowadays you make the Hall of Fame with a WAR around 70. Willie Mays' WAR was 156. 5th highest all time.
Wow.
And as George has pointed out here in our little chat room,
yes.
He, as a teenager, he was playing in Birmingham in the Negro Leagues. At first, he was in high school and he could only play on the weekends. And then he played for the Birmingham Black Barons at Rickwood Field. And as fate would have it, tomorrow night in Birmingham at Rickwood Field, there's going to be the Giants and the Cardinals, and it's going to be a big celebration of the Negro Leagues and honor Willie Mays, who grew up in Westfield, Alabama, 9 miles west of that ballpark.
I don't know if you can see this photo or not in here. Probably can't. It's a picture of Willie in Birmingham with his New York Giants bag and his bats. Looks like he's about 21 or 20 years old. Can you see that, David?
No, I saw the photo you put up before, but I think I've seen the photo. And those were the 2 34-ounce bats that he took with him from Birmingham when he got called up to the Giants.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's you can argue all you want about who the great players were and whatever. I mean, think about him as he could not just do a lot of things. He did them all great.
Well, there are a lot of people that believe, Buddy, he was the first 5-tool player.
Yeah.
The whole hit for average, hit for power, run, throw. That he was arguably, I mean, there's a couple stats that I love. 12 Gold Gloves. Probably would have had more, but I don't think the Gold Glove was around at the beginning of his career, number one. Number two, I love the fact that he officially played, I think it's either 22 or 23 years in the majors, but he went to 24 All-Star games because for a few years in the early 60s, they actually played 2 All-Star games in a season, and he went to both of them. So he's actually played in more All-Star games than he played years in the majors.
Okay. That's a great stat, yeah. I don't know. People have started the conversation about who the next Willie Mays, not ever be one of those, the great player was, who's the best player. You can have all kind of conversations about that. And I'm not willing to go there. I mean, the guy that never gets mentioned, who I loved and saw him play in the series, was Roberto Clemente. He was a fantastic player. He was about a 7-2 player. But you can argue about who is the next best, Bonds, whatever. But there'll only be one say, "Hey, kid," and he was amazing.
I will say, for what it's worth, and I'm 58, that when he was in his prime and healthy, of my generation, because I was approaching 8 when Willie played his last game, but Buddy, of my generation, the closest player, based on what everybody had ever said about Willie Mays, that I thought I was witnessing in his young prime, was Ken Griffey Jr.
Yep. One who France thinks is the next great player. I see he's logged on now. Yeah. Franz, you there?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Right.
I am.
David's been regaling us the great Willie Mays stories, and I know he's got to get going, and we're going to wrap this up here. But before you go, David, one more time, would you, if you were a betting man, would you take the long odds on Florida getting there and getting to the championship series? They got to be astronomical, don't they?
So, well, they got to beat A&M, twice in 24 hours? No, I mean, I would bet A&M, obviously, to win 1 out of 2, just like I would bet Tennessee to win 1 out of 2 against Florida State. But I think Florida has a better shot of winning 2 against A&M than the Noles do against Tennessee.
David Moulton on Miller and Moulton. David, thank you so much for doing the show this afternoon. Appreciate it. I was second. We're back again on a regular time next week with Allie. Or wait, are you off next week again, David? I forget.
No, I'm in next week. July, I'm out of the loop, but I'm in next week.
Terrific. David Moulton. Thanks, David.
Take care.
Thank you. All right. So, friends, you saw it. And it's hard to believe, isn't it? How about these Gators?
Well, it's hard to believe, and yet it isn't, buddy, because this is a team. You hear that overused term, house money, but they are playing with house money. This is another, just one more elimination game, and they've been through a bunch of them, and they just seem to thrive on that pressure. And give Kevin O'Sullivan a lot of credit for sticking with Pierce Coppola. A lot of people would not have done that and said, well, let's just write him off. Let's wait till next year on him and everything. Pierce Coppola went 100 pitches today and threw very, very well. Struck out
the batter of the rest hitter with the last one, the 100th.
Yeah. He's. I want you to think about this next year. Liam Peterson, Pierce Coppola, and Jake Clemente as your starting 3 on weekends. That is going to be, I got to tell you what, that's going to be a pitching staff. But right now, we got to worry about getting through the Aggies tonight. And I have no idea who he's going to pitch tonight. I don't even know if he knows who he's going to pitch tonight. I think it's going to be one of these games where you go, okay, we're going to just try to get through the first 6 innings and then let Jameson and if we got a lead, let Jameson and Neely pull us through.
I think you're right.
And I think that's the only way he can do it.
It's worked so far.
Yeah, it is. My guess would be that he's going to start with Luke McNeely. Luke throws really hard, and
good live young arm. Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to go. I look for him to go like maybe 2 innings with Luke McNeely. Maybe go a 2-2-2, and then figure that he's got or 2-2-1, and then figure he's got Jameson and Neely on the end, because Jameson and Neely have been just lights out in this postseason. They both have. Fisher Jameson was not mentioned on any draft possibilities heading into the postseason, but I think since the Georgia series, I think he's pitched his way into really good contention to be drafted first 10. I'm hearing that maybe 8, 9, 10 he could get drafted. He throws in the low to mid 90s. consistently, doesn't walk a lot of people, throws a lot of strikes. And when he's throwing strikes, he's really tough. I know Brandon Neely, I think, has probably pitched himself into a top 5.
Well, now you're talking about a guy that's got my heart. Brandon, I've told you, this guy has really been fierce. The way he attacks it, he's got a all arms octopus motion. He brings that ball. It's not just fast, but it's quick. And that fastball on you before you know it, you know.
The ball's doing this too.
That's right. And he got a little inside. Yeah, we called them inside in shoots when I was a kid. But anyway, friends, in a remaining couple of minutes here, we have to wrap this up. We're in Tallahassee and we're passed through checking out our hotel. We'll be in Panama City tonight watching this next game. Wow, can't believe it. And there are 2 things in particular I want you to talk about. Well, actually 3. We talked about Coppola, however you want to say, which is, what do you have, like 10 innings this year he's pitched or something?
No, he pitched a few, but
18 or something. I would have not meant.
They've been bringing him along bit by bit because
which Sully does. Which Sully does. Yeah, I was going to say, which Sully does as good as anybody. He brings those pitchers along so beautifully for the moment. So then we had that. Now we have Brady Donay, who all of a sudden is, well, who is he? Babe Ruth. I don't know. He hits 2 out today and ripping the ball. And now in the great moment for the guy we all say is the greatest baseball player Florida ever had, Cags hit a monster. And those, I want you to talk about each one of those points, okay?
Well, Brody Donay has monster power. That's why he's a Lakeland kid, signed with Virginia Tech out of high school, out of Lakeland Christian. Goes up there, hit 12 home runs as a freshman, made freshman All-American. He's big behind the plate. I mean, the kid's 6'6", and you don't see a lot of 6'6" catchers. And I think he's got a lot of work to do to be a catcher every day. I think what they're going to do next year, I think you'll see him as the first baseman with Luke Heyman catching, and I think they'll kind of, so that nobody has to catch 3 games on a weekend. I think you'll do 2 and 1 and like that. That's what I believe they'll do with him. But he's got monstrous power, as you can see. He's got to cut down on the strikeouts. He's a bit too much of a free swinger, as they pointed out today. Has a little loop in his swing, but that's correctable. That's something that the offseason you can get that done. You look at him and Heyman next year. You could have the middle of the order. Curlin's also hit 14 home runs, and now all of a sudden you've got yourself some power in the middle of that lineup. The incoming recruiting class is going to be really, really strong too. They got a kid named Caden McDaniel who had an arm injury, didn't get to play this year, but he's a 2-way guy, and I think he's gonna be good. They signed a kid. They've already signed a kid out from the transfer portal out of Miami who was a freshman All-America, hit 17 home runs at Miami as a freshman. So they're going to have.
Talk about the moments for those guys, because we got about a minute and a half. Talk about Cags.
Yeah, Cags.
And what
can you say? If you throw it where he can get a good swing on it, it's good.
Almost did.
And here's the interesting thing: Peterson and Eduardo Perez saying he hit the ball 380 feet and he didn't even get all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. 75 home runs in his career. And here's the amazing thing about it. You go down the list of the top home run hitters, the top 10 home run hitters in NCAA history, and there he is at 160 something ball games. Everybody else is at 180 to as many as 260 by some of these guys.
Right.
And he's done it. I hate to compare up to major league guys because it's just not fair. But you look at Barry Bonds' great season when he hit 70 something home runs, and then you look at what Cags did in his, And this is for Cag's career because it's now, I think, 164 games, which is only 2 more than the major league level. And oh my gosh, the stats are seriously.
See who was there to tip his cap?
Yes, I did. Matt Laporta himself. And, did you hear the respect? Did you hear the respect that was given by Jack when asked about him? He said, Mr. Laporta was there.
Yeah.
This is folks, enjoy it. This is a big 21-year-old kid who's just out there having the most fun of anybody I've ever seen in a Florida uniform.
And on that note, I thought about that today. If you look at all the pictures of Willie Mays, I've got a ton of them. The pictures that stand out, like the cover of Sports Illustrated, whatever, is the joy he brought to the game of baseball.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't always a happy person around people he didn't know, but the joy when he plays the game was infectious. And the thing I love about Cags, he plays the game with a lot of joy.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what this team has done. And I think this is why the fans are so happy, is that we've had joy watching them play, friends.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it up. Thank you very much, Francis Beard. Don't forget to read him. He'll be on tomorrow night with us. We'll share more of his insight on baseball. Look for his article tomorrow on GatorbaitMedia.com. Francis, thanks for coming on short notice, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, Franz Beard, I'm going to say goodnight to you, and thank you very much for listening and watching. And thanks to our sponsors. Kind of a commercial, Reed Jones, the Zone today. Melvin Lowe got theirs in, but Titan MRI and Minnesota Medical Research, thank you for bringing a special edition of the Buddy Martin Show. We've been live from Tallahassee. Going to be fun to watch tonight. Hopefully enjoy it. I'm going to.